So my name is Grosso, and I am author of the Indie Spiritualist. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I was in a heavy Ram Dass phase of my life, which I always kind of am. He's a great teacher, but I was really into Be Here Now, and I'd had an eighth of mushrooms just kind of sitting around in my apartment for maybe a month, and I've tripped on LSD and mushrooms easily over 100 times. Never had a bad experience. So it was a Sunday afternoon, and like I said, just really into Be Here Now, and I'm reading, I'm like, I'm going to take this whole eighth by myself, and I am going to see the face of God, and it's going to blow my mind and be amazing. I take the eighth of mushrooms just by myself, and I stroll on down by foot about a 10-15 minute walk to a local Thai restaurant, and I order up some food and a glass of wine, and all of a sudden I notice this Shiva statue looking at me, and starts to move, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. I quickly chugged down the glass of wine, and they bring the food, and I was like, oh, I need that to go. And the woman just looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, I'm sorry. And I'll never forget the walk back. It felt like it took days. It probably was 15 minutes, but every step was like, you want to practice mindful walking, take a ton of mushrooms. I get back to the apartment, and I don't know what to do with myself. Some time goes by, I'm just kind of sitting in my living room, and then I have the brilliant idea, it's probably around 6 o'clock, to try to go to sleep. And this is about 3 hours or so into the experience, and anyone who's taken any psychedelics knows you are not going to fall asleep. And my anxiety started going through the roof, and I just kind of vaguely remember thinking, this is not what I signed up for this time. And so for whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't call my friends, like I should have, but I called my parents, who lived about 20 minutes away from me. It was hard to even talk at this point, and I'm like, I'm freaking out, I'm on mushrooms, and I don't know what to do. And my mom's like, what is that? And my parents are very blue-collar, straightforward people. They don't drink. My mom smoked for a number of years in her life, but that was like it. She's like, do we need to call an ambulance? Because at this point, I'd already been to the emergency room a number of times, but more from alcohol. And they've seen me in there, so their initial reaction is, he needs to go to the hospital. I'm like, oh God, no, don't call an ambulance. So 20, 30 minutes later, they get there, and they're like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was having trouble wording anything. They're like, all right, why don't you come spend the night at our house? And I'm like, okay. I remember getting up, and I just handed this copy of Be Here Now to my mom, and I was like, maybe this will explain it. And she looks at it and looks at me and just kind of shakes her head. And we're walking out to the car, and it's nighttime at this point, and I remember looking up at the stars, and it was a very transcendental experience, but it wasn't in a good way. It was all like forever was coming crashing down on me, and I somehow just muttered out like, it's all too real. And my parents just didn't know what to do. So the only saving grace in this experience was that when we got back there, The Simpsons were on, and I'm a longtime fan of The Simpsons, so I turned that on, and that started to calm me down. And then Family Guy was on, and so I ended up, sleeping upstairs in the spare bedroom. And the next morning, I came downstairs, and my mom was sitting there with a copy of Be Here Now, and she's like, I read the whole thing last night. I still don't get it. Mission was not accomplished. There was no face of God. I didn't enter the room with Christ and have this amazing experience. And that's the last time I ever ingested any psychedelics in my life. I took it as a sign that that is not the path for me. I do certainly honor all of the 100 or so or more previous acid and mushroom experiences. They were huge catalysts for me. I do believe that, in opening my consciousness. But that was when I wasn't doing it in a spiritual way. So I am grateful for those experiences and not so happy about the last one, but live and learn. So I lived and learned.
And so this story takes place in Williamsburg, New York in 1994, I think.
Now, I'm not sure exactly what the year was. I think it was 1993.
It was still pretty wild.
And I lived in this humongous loft space that was actually 3 separate loft spaces, and my space was 1,200 square feet.
It was a serious place for artists to go and have enough space to create